give us a quick brief, however you want to call it, about the Canadian rental market right now, and what kind of trends are you personally seeing just in your day-to-day with talking to our clients?
Yeah, for sure. And I think kind of before I get into it, we have just an awesome roster of expert speakers today. We're going to go pretty deep into quite a few topics. I think the goal for you and I here is just to sort of set the stage around some of the major themes that will get covered. So I don't want to go too deep, so if I leave you kind of hanging on a piece or two, that's kind of intentional. But yeah, we can start by talking a little bit about the market and go from there.
We'll buzz you off if you go over time.
There's a timer now, so I try to keep it within the guidelines. But yeah, the best way that I can sort of describe where we're at in the Canadian multifamily market is that we're really in a transitionary period. I've used this saying probably 50 times in the last couple of months, but I think it's sort of a calm before the storm. It's a little cliche to say that, but I really do believe we're sort of at that point. Some of the major dynamics happening that we're seeing at a high level is that we're seeing some major institutional money flow into the space, and even some large U.S. multifamily operators starting to show some serious interest in the Canadian market. Some of those are even in the room. We have companies like Greystar and Hines, and we're also seeing this pivot from the traditional condo developer who is showing significant interest in purpose-built rentals, and even at sometimes as their only option right now. We're seeing politicians who are saying the words purpose-built rentals, which is like on a daily basis too, which is literally something we never heard before. I would say the average politician at each level of government may have not even known what that term truly meant up until recently, and now you're hearing it from everyone, and you're hearing it on the news every day from every anchor. And so we're also at a point where kind of in a strange moment where construction may have tapered off a little bit in 2024, mainly due to interest rates and some uncertainty, but we're definitely seeing that issue is kind of coming out of the way in the near future. The investor interest is there, and that money is waiting on the sidelines, ready to kind of go into action. We've got the high levels of immigration that, although they've been tapered back a little bit, will continue to persist over the next few years. And so I think we're at a point where we very well may see record construction in the next 5 to 10 years in the multifamily space in purpose-built rentals. So that's kind of at a construction level. A couple other small trends I'll mention is, well, probably not small, is, and we have a whole session on this coming up, but rental market data is doing some very unusual things. Asking rents are doing some very unusual things right now. They're shifting quickly at both the national level and at the Toronto level. So there's a lot on that today. I don't want to go deep into that, but it's a big part of today. And I'd say the last thing to kind of bear in mind is major shifts in consumer preference and consumer behavior. We're seeing the rise in roommates. We're seeing the non-existent first-time home buyer and renters staying longer in their units. We're seeing the prioritization of affordability. It's way up. And so to wrap all that up, things are very, very different than they were 24 months ago, which is why this is a good time for us to be doing this show. It's a time of change, and I think things were probably too boring 24 months ago. So
yeah, definitely. And I think it's kind of interesting because I talked earlier about just how much we've grown. Like, we're at 120 employees now. And I started here, my first day working at Rentsync was the first day we started work from home. So basically when 19 was really coming around. And I don't know if you guys remembered that awful time, but I was the 44th employee, I think, and we've kind of grown exponentially in those last 4 years. So I kind of use that frame as, I don't want to say Giacomo's era, but the time, but since then, it's kind of been interesting in the purposeful rental field. What have you noticed like in the last year or since COVID, Giacomo era, since in the industry specifically? Because I think a lot of people have come into this industry in those last few years. So what have you kind of noticed?
Well, if we go back to price, rental asking rates, I think like the big story right now is that we're actually seeing just a minor amount of asking rent deflation nationally. Only 1.2% in October, and we'll see what November's numbers come in at pretty soon. It's probably accelerating a little bit, but we'll see. It's not a surprise in Toronto. Toronto now has posted 6 or 7 straight months of decline, right? So to be clear here, we're not talking about growth. We're not talking about disinflation. We're talking about deflation. Rents are actually going down. That's a very unusual sight to be seen, especially when you have the context of the fact that we're in this housing crisis. So there's a lot to unpack there as to what's happening. The other story is demand, something else that our 2 data experts who are up next are going to get pretty deep into. But in short, demand is down in a way. In online search volume, if you just go to Google Trends and you can check that out, it's down significantly. And it's more pronounced in rent-controlled markets. So of course, Ontario, British Columbia, which are both the most expensive markets and rent-controlled. Gee, I wonder why that is. But we're seeing existing renters, essentially, they're just not moving out of those rent-controlled units, and so that's probably the biggest factor on online search demand. The other is more recent, which is this pullback on foreign students, and we're hearing a lot of anecdotal evidence from clients right now that is hitting them pretty hard in cities where there's major universities. So of course, Toronto, with all its universities, is feeling that. So yeah, those are probably the 2 biggest factors on the demand side, and of course, price is down right now, rental asking rate. So.
Yeah, and I kind of want you to get a little bit deeper into the rent control side of demand, because it's funny, like you just in like anecdotally in my day, if people just say we need more rent control, right? That's kind of what will help demand and pricing. But and you're saying almost the opposite, like rent control actually negatively affects demand. So
yeah, it's kind of a convoluted process to get to understand that. And I will explain why that's important to marketers and to leasers. And it's I'll get to that at the end, but let me explain how those 2 things are kind of coming together. So you've got rent control, obviously my favorite subject. Everybody in the room knows that.
For the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, no. And then you've got inflation. So it's about the 2 things working together. So essentially, you have this period of time where inflation ran pretty wild over a couple of years, 20+%. And you essentially have rent guidelines posted by the provinces that ran 3 to 4 times less in terms of what the allowable rental increases are in rent-controlled buildings. They ran 3 to 4 times less than the rate of inflation. And so when that occurs, and I know that we hear in the media all the time that rental rates are out of control, rental affordability is at an all-time low. That is true when you're talking about new renters. That is like very false when you're talking about existing renters. But you don't ever get that clean nuance out of the media typically, unless you get into like real estate media generally, which is not where the vast majority of the public spends their time. And so you have a situation where like the rational renter is actually viewing their rent as the most affordable thing in their life. Everything else has gone up considerably, and they're sitting there going, including most likely their wage, to keep up with general inflation, and they're sitting there going, wow, like, my rent is pretty sweet, and I'm not moving. And so you used to have a situation, like just a few years back, you used to have a situation where people just freely made a choice to move, and it wasn't irrational. They used to move for many reasons, right? They used to move to have a shorter commute to work. They used to move in with a partner, or just to get a bigger space, or they liked the building's amenities. They used to move because ultimately they just wanted to. And so, after this period of time with such persistent inflation, that's just not happening. We have a national turnover rate that's 12%, and we have a turnover rate in Toronto that's like 8%, and in rent-controlled buildings that's probably even lower. And those are like mind-blowing statistics. I haven't been around as long as many people in this room, but even 10 years ago, like normal turnover in a building was 20 to 30%. And so to see it, potentially as low as 5 to 10% is just kind of mind-blowing. And so you actually have the situation where people are stuck, and the cause is indirectly rent control. So people are stuck in place. And the reason this is really important to understand from a marketing and leasing standpoint, this isn't just data that's going to impact, where the next wave of development is going to be, or what's going to happen to construction financing. Like this is really relevant in marketing and leasing. And the reason we think that is because your main challenge now is very different today as a marketer or as a salesperson than it was a couple years ago. Your main challenge a couple years ago was to convince somebody that you have a great apartment building in a great neighborhood with great amenities and that they should move there. Now you're up against a probably more difficult challenge, which is that you need to convince somebody that they actually should move at all. And that requires a very different messaging and strategic approach, and things that have not been implemented generally in Canada in the past because we just didn't need to. We had a free flow and of market, and we just don't have that right now. So that's why it's so important to understand that concept. Those are the prospects, or even the people who aren't prospects because they're not going online to search for apartments because they're just not thinking about it. And to give you one small example of how we've changed our messaging, when we started to realize this new trend of just stagnation, is we literally changed our slogan on Rentals.ca. Some of you may have seen it. It's time to move. And a lot of our messaging in our ad campaigns and through Jack Armstrong is trying to show people that there is good reason still to move. If you have the money to do it, that there are benefits, right? And to not sideline those benefits so that you instead use that extra wage on a new car or on vacation, but actually to prioritize your living situation instead of. And so, yeah, we've actually made changes ourselves, but I think I've seen clients start to make changes in that area, but I think that's what clients are up against now. It's a different marketing problem.
I've never said this to you, so I want to hear. That's smart because I think because like it makes sense because like I live in a rent control building, and as everything's going up, like I know it's hard for me to complain about rent control, and we do sympathize with people who are like, yeah, this is the only thing that's still affordable in your life, right? So then how do we strategically move our slogan and what we try to sell? It's a lifestyle more now, and I think we've done a pretty good job of staying on top of that, and the good thing is our industry seems to be doing the exact same thing and kind of showcasing like this is available for you if you're willing to take that leap and move, right?
To some degree, it is a collective responsibility as an industry to to have that sort of messaging change of prioritizing your living situation again, and in some ways it will naturally take care of itself, the turnover problem. If rents fall enough, the gap between an in-place rent on average and a market rent will shrink. Right now that gap, well, the latest number is still a 2023 CMHC number. It was like 31% in Toronto. So you need that gap probably to shrink a considerable amount for the consumer to just pick up and start moving freely again and upgrading their life.
Gotcha. You kind of touched on some challenges that property managers and developers are facing, and kind of what I wanted you to maybe stick on that, but also flip side, like some opportunities that you're seeing right now, just from talking to people in this room, really. So maybe some negative, but some positive side of things.
Like challenges,
Yeah.
Challenges and maybe some opportunities. I'd say like there's still a fundamental challenge around making the math work to build. Though light at the end of the tunnel, like I said, around interest rates, there are some municipalities now taking smarter approaches to development charges. We just saw, I think, the city of Vaughan cut them in half. Good start. Need a large Ontario municipality to take the lead on that. But yeah, the math is still not mathing in some areas. But I think that opens up opportunities in secondary markets, markets just outside of downtown cores. So I think we'll see maybe a shift, at least in the short, medium term, of some dollars into those regions. That's something that we'll probably expect. And the reason is, it's just a little bit less risky. The rents are not declining at the same rate as well. That probably is now moving up the board of largest challenges. We're solving the interest rate issue, but rents are coming down, so you're trying to underwrite these deals to build a new apartment, and now how will financing come in when they see rental rates starting to moderate? So areas where that's happening less will probably be impacted less. So I think, again, secondary markets just outside of downtown cores, it's going to be big in the next couple years. And I think at scale, it's still mathing in downtown cores. Like you're seeing projects still kind of go through. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. If you want to stick more in Toronto, because this is going to be a really positive day. We're really excited about a lot of stuff that's happening in the industry and our company specifically. But like yourself, what are you most excited about? Maybe in the Toronto market, but just kind of in the industry in general.
I guess I could be known to be a little bit cynical about Toronto. I live here. I've lived here my whole life.
Don't.
But I do love the city. I do think it has tremendous potential. They are building significant transit, just never gets done. But there are some good things happening. The Ontario line, I think they just broke ground. I think transit is like critical. I know I'm up here for one more session, and it's a pretty big topic on transit. So, but I think there are obviously reasons. I also think that we're going to see a little bit of a rebirth of office culture. May have hit our kind of low point, I'm hoping. And if that happens, people are going to start moving back into the city. We're just getting hit. We're getting punched in a couple areas all at once, especially this foreign students situation. It's just a few things all at once, but end of the day, the fundamentals are still really strong. So I'm optimistic.
Yeah, work culture is a big thing. Hey, like just the deprioritization of living in these downtown cores, just to live where you work is kind of, we were in Calgary, and like they're really moving on this office to residential conversion program to kind of just say, they're not coming back. But I think it is going to come back, as at least we see it in our culture, in our offices, right? There's that whole, we're friends with who we work with. Like there's a benefit for it, and I'm sure you guys are all having challenges with that too. But we'll get there. We'll get there. And maybe we're Rentsync. hence the banner. But what does the future kind of look like for us? You know, I know it's going to be part of our presentation, just kind of stuff that we're bringing in, but you know, there might be some who don't know, and I did mention earlier, but you know, we did strategically merge with Building Stack, so I know that's going to be a big part of it. But what does the future of Rentsync look like, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, the immediate future is that we are going to be in Ottawa on Thursday for our last roadshow, which is bittersweet. It's kind of nice to wrap this series up because it does take a lot of time and resources and effort, but at the same time, it's been like tremendously beneficial. Ottawa's a great market, so excited to go there. But I think at medium to longer term, there's a lot on the go. We're kind of a company that just never really stops, and we're never really satisfied with where we're at. So we see a lot of expansion opportunities, both in Canada. There's still a lot of room to grow in Canada, but also in international markets, the US, but even in markets like the UK. We're starting to spend a good amount of time, thinking about launching into the UK. And we ultimately want to keep innovating at the end of the day. We have a lot to showcase even here today, but there's a lot in the pipeline. There's a lot of new things coming that we're excited about. Building Stack, big theme as well of today. Of course, we merged actually 1 year ago. It's been a year. So time flies. Also 1 year ago, I got married. So I actually got married to Building Stack, the company, and my wife, like within 2 days of each other.
Does she know that?
She did. It was very stressful.
Yeah.
But it worked out. And so, the whole idea there, you briefly alluded to it, but like we have been a company that has focused at the top of the funnel for a very long time, leader in lead generation. And we had heard for a very long time from our clients, do you do anything with these leads? How can I qualify these leads? And there's a number of solutions out there. It's fragmented. And we always knew within our product development vision that we wanted to go lead to lease. We also knew that after that, we wanted to go lease to life, as in resident portal and in-building experience. Building Stack comes along, Montreal-based company, roughly 30 employees, great culture that just matched up exactly with what we had going at Rentsync, and had both of those things. We never expected to have that opportunity where there was both the CRM and leasing tools, right through to online leasing or credit checks, online tenant screening, through to online leasing, as well as an industry-leading resident portal. And so it was just sort of serendipitous. We got along. We were able to make that happen, and it's been very transformative in the last 12 months. Now we're focused on deep product integration, and we've got a number of clients now who are they were previously clients of both, and they're benefiting from that deep product integration, but we're also seeing just a ton of clients benefit from moving into some of those tools, and start to adopt that technology. It's just super exciting, super fun, and the two founders are here today as well from Building Stack, Jonathan and Pablo, who I think many of you guys know as well, but they're deeply embedded into Rentsync now, and Rentsync culture, and they're on the senior management team. So it's just very much worked out, and we have a really bright future with Building Stack Rentsync.